Hi, Stephen. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Ormi, what about yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. Finally, it's a bit less hot today, so I was able to take a nice walk in the morning to start the day. And I'm very excited to have you with me today for this interview. I know we're gonna have a great conversation, and we'll be talking about on how to run an effective workshop. But before we start, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do from a professional point of view.
Absolutely, thank you for that. So I used to be in the Canadian Army. I was an officer in the Army for 30 years. And then I got a job with a company here in Kingston in 2007, basically doing what I was doing when I was in uniform. And I've been doing that for the last 18 years. And basically what we do is, under our contract, is we design, develop, and deliver training, exercises, seminars, workshops for the military. So I've had 18 years of experience in the workshop world with this company, but I also have done it a lot in my church community and other settings. So professionally, I work full-time as a manager at the site here in Kingston. And from a Toastmasters perspective, I joined in 2005. I've competed in contests at district level 3 times. I've done Speechcraft. I've been club president. I've been an area director, division director, done a lot of different things. But my jam is mentoring. That's my favorite thing to do. And I often run workshops on mentoring.
This is why I called you for this, because I was like,
I know.
You're the great person for this. I'm very, very happy. So I want to start off with a question. So my first question for you is, like you have just mentioned, you have a great experience running workshop and you have experience with Toastmaster, different workplaces and churches. So my question is, in your point of view, what makes a workshop effective than other forms of training or learning?
Sure. So I start off by saying that one of the things about workshops is it gives you a lot of room for maneuver in terms of what you want to do. If you're giving a lecture or a keynote speech at a dinner, you don't really have the flexibility to say, okay, everyone break out into subgroups and we're going to reconvene in 10. It doesn't really work that way. The great thing about workshops is they are so flexible. You can set them up how you want. You can arrange groups if you want, or subgroups. The material you use is entirely at your call. So the biggest advantage to workshops, to me, as opposed to other types of training people might do, including lectures, is the flexibility that the workshop approach provides to your approach to learning. That would be the number one thing. But from a delivery perspective, I think the thing that makes the difference between a great workshop and an okay workshop is how creative the workshop designer is in terms of how they're drawing the information or presenting the information that they want their participants to acquire during the workshop. So it's about creativity.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think should be the average length of a workshop?
It can be days if you wish, but you need to program in, mental breaks and biological breaks to break it up. So the worst thing you could do is run a workshop for 3 hours without a break. People will have mental fatigue from that. Typically the ones I run, the minimum I would want is an hour, because the way I do them is we often break into subgroups. I want people to have time to talk. Someone takes notes. Someone's going to present the results of the group discussion. Then we're going to have a reflection at the end. It's hard to do that in anything less than an hour.
Yeah.
I have seen workshops and participated in workshops that have run all day. Some of the ones I've run on mentoring have lasted like an afternoon, 3 or 4 hours. Anything longer than a day, you're into almost a conference, but you could have a conference which is a series of workshops, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the big thing here is to recognize that people only have a certain capacity for intensive discussion and analysis and so on. So you need to build breaks in throughout the workshop to allow them to do that.
Yeah, I agree. And I do like the idea that workshops have to be creative, because you are able to, because I think, again, workshop, you decide how you want to build it. No one usually tells you. You have the freedom to choose, and you have that flexibility. So I definitely agree with everything that you have said. So moving on. But then the next question is about the structure. So I want to know, like, when it comes to structuring a workshop, what are the key elements to make sure that it's a structure a workshop, organize, and to make sure that it's successful?
Yeah, so there are some nuts and bolts things like where's the venue and what is it like, how long do we have it? Those are what I call more mechanical type issues, but you have to know those to understand how your workshop's going to unfold. For example, if you're going to break into small groups, are there other rooms you can go to? So that there's some nuts and bolts stuff, but the single biggest thing, and it's true for all the training I've run for the military for the last 18 years as well, is for the people who are participating to have a clear understanding of what the purpose of the workshop is and what the objectives are that people want to get out of the workshop. So I'll give you an example. If you're running a workshop, let's say it's for a coffee shop staff in a neighborhood coffee business, and the concern basically is, you want to build the business. That's basically why you're running the workshop. So that would be the purpose, is to look at ways to build our business in this community. But there are a whole bunch of things you could look at. For example, some of the objectives might be to improve your advertising, to find methods of improving customers returning, so building a client base who's dependable. It might be ways of improving service and reducing costs. That might be another objective you have. Mm-hmm. So number one thing is, why are we doing this workshop? Like, what's its purpose? And then the next level of detail is, what specifically are the objectives of this? What are the outcomes we want? So that's priority one. If you don't get that right, you're going to have a great workshop about something that you were not intending to actually cover as a subject. So that's important. The second one is using adult learning tools or principles to build the workshop. Now, the reality is that today's generation is far better educated than their parents were or their grandparents were. One of my grandparents had a university degree. My grandkids, all of their grandparents have a university degree. So people are better educated. People are more skeptical. They're less attached to institutions. They tend not to work at the same company for the rest of their life, like my maternal grandfather did. They move around a lot. So as you go to design your workshop, it's important to keep in mind adult learning principles. Now, there's several websites you can go to for this. One of them is called Western Governors University, and they have a list of 10 adult learning principles, which include things like giving people a chance to share their experiences. It includes things like allowing them to do their own analysis rather than just be fed information. So the great thing about adult learning is there's been a lot of study into it in the last 20 or 30 years. We got away from the idea that if you're doing a master's degree, you go in a room and you get lectured at for 3 years. Like, that's not the model anymore. People aren't interested in that. And so the idea here is use some adult learning principles, focus, make sure that those types of things are the cornerstone of what you're delivering. And the big part is they need to be part of the experience. They need to be engaged in some way and have an opportunity to contribute. So that would be the second thing, is to design the workshop using adult learning principles. And the interesting thing about adult learning is there's been a lot of discussion on it, but if you look around at the different theories and proponents of it, a lot of the principles they're advocating are exactly the same. It's like the same list of 10 to 12 things. So it's not, as George W. Bush used to say, rocket surgery. It's not hard to do. It's fairly easy to identify what some of those learning principles are and to apply them in building your workshop.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to building a workshop, of course, like you said, there should be a learning and, you should have a purpose when it comes to building a workshop. But I think the most difficult part is basically getting the attention of the audience or having people to sign up to listen to the workshop or to be present during the workshop presentation. So my question is, how, we talk about this principle, which is what's in it for me. How do we convince people to sign up for a workshop? Sure.
So the context of how the workshop is being delivered is important. So you work for RBC, right?
Yes, but I didn't want to mention this on the call.
Okay, can you edit that out after?
Yes.
It's on your LinkedIn profile.
Yes, but they don't want me to say it like in social.
No, I gotcha. Okay,
yeah, so let's take a pause and then answer the question so I can cut this part.
So that's a great question. How do you get people interested? How do you answer the question, what's in it for me, for them? And the answer is, firstly, you have to understand the context of why they're there. If they're part of a business and they've been ordered to go, that's a much harder deal than a workshop you might offer through Toastmasters on some topic, for example, how to do better social media in your club, that people are naturally attracted to because they voluntarily sign up to do it. They're not being paid to be there. So as I go to prepare a workshop, foremost in my mind is, how did they end up getting there? Much harder if they've been ordered to go or they're under some compulsion to go than it is if they've voluntarily signed up. That's the first part. But in both cases, what you really need to do in the first few minutes of your workshop, just like in a speech, is you've got to catch their attention. It could be a catchy title to your workshop. One really good way to, and the most effective tool I've seen, is to start with some questions that they answer. Like, for example, in this mentoring workshop today, what do you want to get out of this session? What's a win for you? Mm-hmm. They're now part of the workshop in a way. That they're starting to buy in because you've asked them what they want to get out of it. So I ran a mentoring workshop recently, and that was my first question. And people were there for different reasons. And mentally, I'm going through my head, I'm going, yep, my workshop will do that. Yep, my workshop will do that. And if they asked a question or gave a comment where I hadn't really covered that topic, then I was ready to incorporate it into the workshop. So I had a bit of flexibility, I could do that. So getting their feedback right from the get-go would be the second step. First step is, why are they there? Is it directed or voluntary? And the second question is, or second point would be to ask them what they want to get out of this session. And it takes a bit of flexibility because they might ask you a couple of things they hadn't totally planned on. But if they're within the general realm of the topic, then I say go for it and try and incorporate that into some of the discussions and activities you're going to do. So those would be the two things. Another way is facts and figures or anecdotes. Let's say, for example, it's a bunch of financial planners. You're with some big business that does investment planning. You got them all together, and let's say the company's struggling a bit. Their performance is not as good. So you might present them some graphs. One graph would show the number of clients that you've had, say, over the last 5 years. One might show the amount they're investing over the last 5 years, and one might show your profitability over the last 5 years. So you give them the graphs and you say, okay, why do you think our client base is growing and our income base is growing, but our profits are down? So because they're investment planners and they want to be part of a successful company, you're starting to touch on an area of their lives that's very important to them, right? Business success for investment planners is really important. So using some facts, some stories, some anecdotes can be a way to catch people's interest right off the bat. Yeah. So those would be some ideas on how to get people tuned in. That would be step 3 is use some other tool that they're naturally interested in.
Yeah, it's a little bit like when you're giving a speech, pretty much. Like you want to make sure it's pretty much like you're giving a speech and you're starting off the speech with some questions, with some facts, anecdotes. That's how you get people's attention. So even running a workshop, it starts off the same way. I definitely agree with that. I also ran a workshop. It was actually for Toastmasters. It was a couple of months ago, and I honestly started right away just going over the workshop, but I do like the technique of asking the question to people, like, why are you here? What are you looking to get out of this? And to have that flexibility to incorporate some of those questions with answers in the workshop. Yeah, because at the end of the day, you are delivering something because, like, for the audience. The audience is there for you. It's not something that you're doing for yourself usually. Yeah,
that's good. I totally echo what you're saying. That's my philosophy, is you've got to figure out what that thing is that drew them to them in the first place, or if they're there for reasons other than their own motivation, what's something they can take away from it, even though they didn't necessarily want to be there. So you got to touch that chord, and asking questions right at the front end is a great way to do that. Mm-hmm. Even people who are grumpy about being there are happy. Many of them are happy to speak and share what they want to get out of it. Yeah. That's a win.
For sure. So my other question is, running a workshop and, getting people's attention can be pretty hard, but also during the whole workshop, it's also hard to, have everyone's attention. My question is, how do we make sure that the workshops are interactive and engaging? Is there any technique or tools that you have used?
I will answer that question, but I just want to go back to one thing on your previous question.
Yes.
Whenever I run a workshop, I always try to show up a half hour early. and I try and speak to as many people as I can and get a sense for the audience before I start. Plus, sometimes I find I have a connection with somebody, and right off the bat, as we're running the workshop, I can make reference to, oh yeah, we play hockey together, or whatever. It provides another connection point between members of the audience and yourself. So arrive early, socialize a bit. That will help break the ice before you get to formal delivery. Now, coming back to ways to make the workshop more effective. Again, it comes down to adult learning principles. One of the principles, for example, is it's experience-based. So when I run a workshop in mentoring, I recognize that I don't know everything in the world there is to know about Toastmasters mentoring or other mentoring. So by encouraging people to share their experiences, for example, what do you do if you're having a bad mentoring relationship that's not working out? I open the floor up to discussion, then people get to contribute, and we all benefit from whatever that lesson was that that person had.
Yeah.
So the key thing here is to have sessions where people have an opportunity to contribute. Now, one way to do that is to break them into subgroups. So I'm in an advanced Toastmasters club called Mastermind, and what we do is we have a keynote speaker or a speaker, only one speech, and then we go into breakout groups with questions that we've prepared beforehand. So we'll have 3 or 4 breakout groups. One person is designated to take notes, and then they give a summary in plenary back in the main room after. So breaking a group of, say, 12 people down into 3 groups of 4 or 4 groups of 3 allows for a lot more discussion. Everyone gets a chance to share, as opposed to a group of 12, where in a 60-minute window, 12 by 12 into 60, you're getting about 5 minutes each. But if you're in 3 groups of 4 or 4 groups of 3, you could maybe speak for 10 or 15 or 20 minutes during that same 1 hour period. So using subgroups with some guidelines is the best way, I think, to get the workshop to be that much more effective for people.
Do you run your workshop online, or you do them in person? How did you do them in the past?
I mostly prefer doing them in person for some of the reasons I've already talked about, like getting to know the audience, and sometimes people, their cameras are off, and it's just like, it's just not, you and I here today, it's easy because it's just the 2 of us, but in a larger group, that it gets more problematic. In fact, I've run workshops where I can't see everybody on the screen. So I much prefer to do in person, and I think that learning outcomes are better. But it's okay to do it online, like my mastermind club does. We build 20 to 25 minutes of breakout time with a prepared set of questions in chat, and then the facilitator, whoever it is that night, goes through and does it. And that actually is quite workable. Of course, then we all come back together in plenary, and then a person from each subgroup will present the results. But I much prefer in person. Both work. In fact, before COVID, I was introduced to Zoom through the Canadian Physiotherapists Assistance Association. They ran 2 webinars. I helped them run them. I'd never seen Zoom before. I was so impressed. I thought, wow, this is the greatest software ever. This is before COVID. And the minute COVID hit, I said to my wife, honey, this stock's company is going to go through the roof. And it went from like $125 a share to $450 a share in 1 year. My biggest regret is I didn't buy those shares. But I could see, even in that nascent stage of Zoom's development, that there was a lot of potential for online. And here's part of the reason. You're in Montreal, I'm in Kingston. There's no travel time involved. I can have people from all over the world join our meeting today. So there are advantages to online over, for example, in person, especially let's say you're in a multinational company or a multi-province company. To fly everybody to one place for 2 days is atrociously expensive. And they're not doing their real jobs. Where if you do it this way, everyone just signs on, they do the 1 or 2 hour session, and then they sign off. So there are advantages to online, mostly in costs and time savings. But I think what you lose is a bit of that kind of personal perspective. I agree. There is a disadvantage and advantage whether you do them online or in person. I feel like in person you also have that connections that you don't get online because people don't have their camera on, and then there's a Zoom fatigue and so forth. And in person you definitely learn a lot more because you also have the chance to speak with the person right after the workshop, so even before or after. So there is that extra connection that you don't get when you're doing things online.
So I do have one last question for you, because you are such an experienced speaker, and you have delivered so many workshops. Was there a moment in your life where you delivered a workshop and it didn't go the way you wanted it to go? And how did you adjust going forward?
Okay, so not that I'm perfect, because I sure am not. Just ask my wife. Okay, she said 40 years to study this individual, and I am definitely not perfect. But I've had pretty good success in workshops, in part because I had a chance to participate in a lot of them before I started to do my own. And when I did my own, I had good support. So one of my suggestions to people, if they're going to run a workshop, is get what we call in the Army a battle buddy. Somebody with some experience who can be with you or join you online and kind of mentor you, maybe send you a private chat or pull you off to the side and say, okay, not a bad approach, but maybe you want to try this. So having somebody support you your first couple times is a good way to go. Now I had that, and as a result, I'd say most of the workshops I ran, I was pretty happy with. But once I was running a Toastmasters event and I needed 2 workshop facilitators. I assume because one of them was a DTM and had been on the district trio before, and the other one is somebody I'd known for years who was a great speaker, would also be great workshop facilitators. No. It's like saying you drive a car well, so you're going to be good on a motorcycle that you've never been on before. It's very different. And unfortunately, what they basically did was gave a lecture with a little bit of audience interaction. Now, what did I learn out of that? Well, number one, I needed to have a meeting with them beforehand to explain and teach them how to do a workshop. I'd sent them some references, like online resources. There's tons of them. I gave them a couple good references, but they obviously did not pay much attention to them, or they failed to apply them in the way that the reference was suggesting. And the second thing was, so do that initial contact, then later on, like a couple of weeks out, meet with them and say, okay, go over your workshop plan with me and make sure that they're actually not just delivering a lecture with a few questions for the audience. So those are my 2 big lessons out of it. Make sure they understand what they're getting into, and that you know that they understand. And secondly, review their plan before they present it. It's my fault. I mean, I could have put more checks and balances in to make sure that it went well, but I did not do that.
Yeah, and I guess you learned from it for going forward.
Oh, yes. High degree of scrutiny now.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a very wonderful presentation conversation that we had. So thank you so much for coming on my channel today. Before I let you go, tell us how people can learn about you, how they can attend some of your workshops if people are interested.
Sure. Yeah. So the easiest way to get hold of me is through my email, which is fritz-millett@hotmail.com. That's FRITZMILLETT. DTM@hotmail.com. They can also go to my website. I have a public speaking website called the Public Speaking Factory. If you Google that, the link will take you to it. You can send me a message, or you can call and text me at 613-546-3281. Happy to take calls, 613-546-3281. I run workshops on a wide variety of Toastmasters subjects, how to do mentoring in a club, how to run better club meetings, tons of how to give a great speech planning tool that will save lots of time and effort and give you a better speech. So I have a list of about 10 kind of topics that I do on a routine basis for Toastmasters. But the great thing about it being a workshop facilitator is you actually don't need to know anything about the topic. Your job is to create the questions or the activities that will cause the people who are at your workshop to focus in on the right things. And an example is the Canadian Physiotherapists Assistance Association. I'm not a physio. I go to physio. That's all I know. But I was able to put a workshop together for them based on their objectives and the purpose of their workshop. And the 2 of them I thought went pretty well, and so did they. So they were pretty happy with the product. So that's my advice is don't be afraid to take on a workshop in a field you're not familiar with. Your job isn't to teach it, your job is to facilitate it. And by the way, in Toastmasters, there's a great way you can cut your teeth on this. Moments of truth. All the material's there. It's designed to be run during a regular club meeting. You break into 6 subgroups or 3, depending on how many people you have in your club. The questions are already there. It's a great way for someone who's never done a workshop before to do it with all the resources already prepared for you. So that would be my suggestion. Start with moments of truth and then go from there.
Super. Well, thank you so much for coming on my channel, Stephen. It was such an honor having you here with me today, and I'm pretty sure the audience have learned a lot from you, and I'm pretty sure they will all be excellent when it comes to running a workshop.
I hope they say that when they're done. That's all I ask. Okay? That's the aim, is to get some positive feedback and figure out some areas for improvement that might make it better the next time around. So thank you, Ormi, for having me here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.